as you're most likely aware, I do a shitload of podcasts, and I have been doing so for like 5.5 years now. And a lot of the podcasts I do, I have a tendency to drown out whoever I'm talking to. I will talk way more than them. I am known for my inability to shut up. That's why my first podcast was called Digibro Never Shuts Up, and that's also the name of my subreddit. So, you know, I'm a guy who talks a fucking lot. And I often get this sentiment in some of the comments where people will be like, well, you know, why'd you even have that other person on if they weren't going to talk as much as you? Or if they were going to, you know, say so little? Or, like, you know, give them a chance to speak. When are you going to, you know, let them talk? Now, the way I see it, I understand where this comes from, because when you see, like, there's two people or there's three people, you're thinking, like, each of them will speak equally. It will be about this guy's perspective and this guy's perspective. I can totally understand that, especially on something where it's, like, you know, like an Ebert and Roper. Like, you're imagining it as, like, this, it's these two guys, this battle of ideas, you know? And I have podcasts that are like that, like Insufferable Social Media Argument, the podcast, where, like, the point of it is each of our perspectives, and you really get an equal amount of me and Monkey Jones. But I think that to look at all podcasts this way is to overlook what can be brought by just having somebody who doesn't necessarily say much. Sometimes those people are bringing one of the most important elements. Because, sure, I may go on forever, but not everything I say is necessarily important, and not everything I say is necessarily equally interesting. And maybe someone like, for instance, Hypocrite, who in the early episodes of the Procrastinators podcast especially, would often not say that much, but the stuff he said was always gold. He always had the funniest line in the podcast, or the best point to make, because he just waits until he has just the right thing to say. And it wouldn't make the podcast better if half of it was Hippo talking, because it's not that he, you know, has a ton of shit to say that he didn't get to say. It's that he had these few things that were really potent and he put them in there. And the podcast would be worse if he wasn't there. You know, it would be worse if we didn't get those little bits of input that help to sell the point or help to sell the joke or just amplify the podcast in some way or another. You know, I like to think of it in terms of like cooking. When you make a dish, there's lots of little spices that you just sprinkle in there, you know? Not every flavor in the dish is there equally. Some of them are just sprinkled throughout, but they do add flavor and they make the dish better. You know, you could eat it plain and it might still be good depending on what it is. You know, you can mash up a burger patty. I'm the burger patty in a podcast. Any podcast I'm a part of, I'm the patty, you know? Now there might be somebody else who's the bun, you know, another big taste. You get Best Guy Ever in there, bun. You know, I'm between his buns is what I'm saying. Me and Best Guy Ever are gay. If you haven't caught that, if you couldn't tell through all the stuff we've made together, we are having gay sex all the time. That's our thing. Anyway, so I'm the burger, he's the bun, right? And then you got Endless Jest, might be a slice of cheese on there, you know, and stuff. But you're still just eating a plain patty. What if you salted that shit? What if you salted and peppered that shit with a little bit of Hypocrite and a little bit of Monkey Jones in there? You know, get a little bit of all that other shit. Get a big bottle of Munchie and just slather it in that shit. You know what I'm saying? Is this metaphor still holding up? Do people follow me? You know what I'm talking about? You picking up what I'm putting down here? Point being, I think it's really interesting when you have people in there who are just adding a little dash here and there and adding something that, you know. Now, granted, I have had the experience of, like, wanting another person to talk more when I am more interested in what they have to say than the person who's talking a lot. I get this happens to me with Hip Hop DX, which is a hip-hop review show where it'll be 4 guys having a roundtable discussion, and Mike Seatown always outtalks everybody else, and I always, like, want to hear, you know, what one of the other guys, like, sometimes I'm like, okay, Mike, I get it, let that guy talk, you know, but at the same time, when that guy does talk, you know, it's a worthwhile addition. I'm more frustrated that, you know, he didn't get to talk more than I am that he was included at all. I certainly don't get the perspective that I've seen some people say, like, why even have someone if they're not going to say much? It's like, well, if they say anything, they've justified their place in it, you know? It's kind of like when you bring on a feature artist to sing just a couple lines in a song, but it's, you know, it adds, like, All of the Lights by Kanye West. There's that one little 4-bar Fergie bit in there, and I don't know why. I don't know why Fergie was brought in for just 4 bars, but it's a good little break in the song. Like, changes the attitude a little bit. You get somebody else's voice in there, and they got the cool little refrain hook where it like repeats, and it melds well with Rihanna's vocals. Anyway, point being, you can get somebody in there for just the touch. You know, you just get a. Not even doesn't even have to be the hook. You know, you don't gotta have Jamie Foxx singing "She Took My Money." You could just bring in like a. Oh, what's a good example? David Bowie at the end of the song Reflector by the Arcade Fire, where like towards the very end of the song you just suddenly have like Bowie in the background going, "I'll do the resurrector, turns out it was just a reflector." He says like 5 lines in the whole song, like all in the background of other people's vocals. Or fucking, you know, Steely Dan with Michael McDonald in the background of FM or something, doing like just the high pitch, or Peg, where he just Peg, and that's his whole contribution to the song behind 4 lady singers. You know, you get my point. You need the spice. You need the spice.